Hello everyone, how you doing? So got a story here. Actually, I guess you could say that this would be a follow-up to a follow-up story. So let me get right to it because I think you're going to find this one interesting. So let's go right over here. So when we're talking about the Earth and how the Earth looks, we see the pictures from space and our satellites that, our planet is this basically perfect sphere. Well, but that's actually an illusion. Odd how we keep on coming up with that word. We live in a reality of illusion. Any case, this is a actual rendering of what the earth would look like without the oceans. Now, it's very revealing when you take a real look at this. Obviously, you can see here in South America and going up into the Rocky Mountains, North America, to me, it looks like those are two indentions. Indentions that something hit, whatever. But as we come back around, I believe that this really goes with the theory of Tiamat. According to the ancient Anunnakis or the Sumerian tablets. It is said that there was a planet here before Earth and that it was probably about the size of Mars, and it was a water planet. And then something came along and hit us, hit the Earth. And you can clearly see here that I believe that this is the ancient remnants of another planet that hit us. And you can actually see how the Earth is still to this day extended out here. And you can see why you have so much earthquakes down here in South America. Now, here over in Indonesia is where it's always heavy, heavy seismic activity, volcanoes. So keeping this in mind, it can begin to allow you to see that this would be the over in the Indian Ocean. We're coming over here to the Atlantic. And when you really look at the Atlantic, now I know it's deep, but you can really see where the waters seem to collect at. I'll let that go by one more time. Do you not agree with me that you can actually visualize how there was a huge impact? Okay, so now we're going to go over here. All right, so this story is about the unusual continue events that is happening in South America and subsequently on the other side as well. Uruguay, Peru, Chile, that side on the other side of South America. Now, I pulled up this to get what the weather was. This is what really caught my attention. Now, those of you who will admit it, that can remember the 60s, that there never was a real concern about UV. Now, you could say, well, it's that we weren't aware of it. I don't know about that so much. It it was always an issue. You didn't want to get sunburn. And I remember, the copper tan. In fact, when I say that word, I can still smell it. But this is what really got me. Folks, even into the 80s, I never remember seeing a UV warning. Well, in fact, back in the 80s, you never heard about it. But when they started measuring the UV, 8, folks, 8 was the high. The charts didn't go any higher than 8. When I saw that this one was hitting at 13. Now, I know that they're down on the equator. I get it. Totally get that. But it's still 13. I mean, you know, it's not just the UV that you have to be concerned about. We all know it carries its a little package. So that was, I found very interesting. 13. Ay, ay, ay. All right. So I'm going to go back in time. This story, as you can see, was August 25th, right? So I did a story on this. Now, at the time, they were seeing crazy tidal recessions. I guess that's the only thing. The tide's receding. And we can actually look at this one here. Now, the people that live there, they know that this is like, okay, this is not normal. We've seen this in several other places in the world as well. Okay, so let's click out of here. Then we have this one right here that was sent in. Now, again, these people live down there. I think they would know best as to what is normal and what is not. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking in some cases 25 feet. I mean, you're not talking a couple of inches. 25 feet. All right. I'll leave the link so all of you can actually check this out for yourself. All right. So at the time, it was thought Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Jose were the reasons for it. Now, Irma did something that they're still going to write the record books on this for years to come. I mean, it was a hurricane of all hurricanes. Now, I read enough stories from enough other places that were saying, well, due to the intensity of the barometric pressure of Irma and the fact that it went, hurricanes stay on top, as they spin. Well, the odd thing about Irma was that it actually was pushing down onto the surface. I mean, just making it even. So it sucked the water out, right? Now, I didn't quite buy it because I don't know how many metric tons in the trillions of ocean that type of that much water, where would it go? We never really saw huge amount of flooding to the extent that you would say, well, that's where the water was going. Now, we saw flooding, of course. So we moved on. Now, look at this. September 21st. Israel bracing for the next huge storm. Water disappears from beaches in Brazil. And this time, it's really getting weird, folks. I wanted to show you a picture here. Look at the difference. This is where it was before. Now this is where the oceans are now. Now, call me whatever you'd like, but I think that we are witnessing very possibly, I think, a tilt on the earth itself at the equator. It's very obvious that something is going on. Then I found this one, September 23rd, another significant ocean receding event in Brazil. Now, they gave their reasons for it, and I'll leave the links. Um, Everyone's getting a theory now on this because something's going on. Are we, in fact, seeing evidence now of what the Inuits were saying in 2012, that the Earth has actually shifted? I think that there would give good credence to that. Now, let's see what happens. And then I had this thought as I was reading the article earlier. What if we're seeing the influence of something? I mean, the first time we could write it off to Irma, but it actually happened before Irma. But there's no hurricane out there now to be causing this. So what's happening here? It's just an anomaly that just seems to be happening now on a cyclical time table. I mean, you cannot help but go, well, now wait a minute. This first event happened. And the great thing about it is that we've got the story right here. August 25th. We got the story September 23rd. Hmm. I don't know. And then Skywatch Media, they're saying that now I'm not sure if I buy this, but listen, whatever you can say, there is some definitely climate shifting going on. Not saying that it's this extreme. I mean, even the guys who wrote the initial models that the UN adapted for the carbon tax, they have actually put a paper. They want to pull their original paper and insert that, well, we were a little bit off. Yeah, they were just a little bit off. So the fact is, if all right, if they were off by what they were saying, nearly, I believe it was 3 times. Holy cow. I mean, come on. I can give you a 5%, 10% variable, but you're wanting 150% variable? I don't think so. So, are we looking at something else happening? I don't know. I know fall's here, and I've looked at this for a number of years. There's always a transition in the vortex, the polar vortex from south to north. It's moving north because southern hemisphere is now into their spring. So we'll see. Now I fully expect that there's going to be a much colder winter, but who knows? So there you go. What do you think? Make sure I'm looking at the camera. Do you think that this is evidence of something shifting on the planet? Remember the actual picture of what the Earth looks like. That's a lot of water. And if the top that is spinning, if the water begins to get jostled around, it has a great deal of influence on the spin. I'm trying to think is could we be seeing potentially a slowing of the rotation of the Earth? Now, this is just my theory as I'm trying to put these pieces together. We try to look for where the suspects normally would show up. We have our little list. And when you have to begin to add hypothesis to the list, well, that's how science works. But I haven't read anyone yet talking about a potential decrease in the rotational speed of the axis of the Earth itself. And I think it should be explored as well. Now, we have clocks right here in Boulder that can actually measure that. Now, I do know that in this century already, I believe they've had to make, I think it's 2 or 3 corrections to the clock because the Earth is in fact slowing down. Now, I have always had a theory and wondering why ice ages. Because if we move at the same distance, the variable distance, and it oscillates by sometimes 2, 3 million miles, but we don't vary that far off. Okay. Are we saying that the sun got weaker? Don't think so. But I began to think, well, what happens? One of two things. What if you begin to slow the earth down? Now, would that cause an effect of cold because the earth is slowing down in its rotation, which would have an effect all the way down, from the heliosphere all the way down to the troposphere? I'm just thinking. And could that be the cause for the great shifts that we have seen in the past in the geological record? Now, follow me. I think it could work as well if it was going even a little bit. You don't have to be talking about a great deal of variance here. I mean, yeah, I think the world rotates at approximately, I think it's 1,114 miles per hour. That's how fast we're spinning, or so they say. Um, so, what if there was an influence either by the Earth itself? Because one of the things that we are learning with so many now of the deep space field telescopes, Cassini, all the new machines that we are putting out there, we're learning that you don't necessarily need the sun if it's heat that you're talking about. Even the great gas giants in our solar system, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, they actually generate heat as you get closer in because of the atmospheres. As you continue to condense atmosphere, heat rises. So that can obviously show that planets are in control of even heat. So what if that's what we're seeing? And what if that is caused by something other than our planet? What if there are influences with the theory that we have that the sun is actually in a binary orbit? We just haven't found it, and that's not that strange. We don't even know things about the earth. People always get the misconception that, oh, we can peer out into space and we know it all. No, no, no. Piecing it as we go, and even that which we put into the piece sometimes is wrong. We'd interpreted it wrong. So, what do you think's going on? I mean, obviously, and you'll see by the links, you can go to a couple of the YouTube pieces that are on there. It's happening. And on the opposite side of the continent, they're getting the opposite effect, many tsunamis that are not generated by particularly earthquake activity. But then again, you can also see now the seismic activity that's taking place now between South America going up through, as we know, Mexico, Central America, and now we're beginning to start seeing some patterns up along the North American coast. I think it's traversing up, but that was a theory I came up with about 3 years ago, and many others have as well. And you can go back and look at the record, and sure enough, it is absolutely, you can see it. It's meandering in a north by northwest direction. So, and you can see by that globe again where that's probably happening. So, anyway, I think we have to just be aware. There's a lot going on. I think that this anomaly is getting interesting. Be curious to see what happens about October 21st or between the 21st and the 27th. So I have listeners that are down there in Brazil. Let me know what's going on. And of course, even the people that live up in Mexico, Costa Rica, and what have you, they're seeing increased volcanic activity. So could this be because potentially the Earth's rotation is being affected, which would then, in fact, I think, have a cascading effect with the weather, with tides? The archaeological evidence, the geographical evidence, shows that there have been abrupt climate shifts. And I do mean abrupt. We're talking shifts that where you would think it would take hundreds of years or longer to show up. The geological record shows differently. They're showing there have been some serious climactic change in very, very short durations of period. Also, as well, we're understanding and realizing the same thing can happen in tectonic shifting. I started a book back in 2002, never finished it, got close to it. I just quit writing because what I was writing, more and more was happening in the real world, kind of like the Lathe of Heaven. How many of you went out there and got that movie? That one will really trip you up. So could you actually have an individual that would just have a uniqueness to tap into, as my previous video when we're talking about frequencies, frequencies containing knowledge, knowledge that where if you had the ability to tune into them would basically fast inject you with knowledge that you didn't have. Maybe that's what we see with savants, other geniuses. And could that same thing happen to other individuals that it would affect when you talk about psychic ability? Yeah, Wayne, you've gone from talking about the earth slowing down to psychic ability. It's all connected, folks. Again, what the UFO multiple species video showed, there you have to give it at least a marginum of consideration that it very well could be that there's other species much smarter than us living amongst us. I keep on getting this crazy idea that, folks, we really are enslaved. I don't know about others. Maybe let me know um, what you think. But I keep on getting this crazy thing that, maybe, just maybe, we are in fact enslaved. enslaved in thought? I don't know. Because the more and more that I see happening, it would lend to that. And what if a greater intelligence than us, or maybe what if it's one of us, could have the ability to affect the climate of a planet? I don't know. I know something's going on. And then again, maybe this is just a coincidence. Again, the great thing about it is that we have two events now. We can actually say, all right, event one happened here, event two happened here. Now we're going to see if there is yet a third event. And then I think after that point, you could probably say to any hypothesis that you would have good grounds for a repeating event, which would then lend itself that if you're having a repeating event, there has to be a cause that is actually initiating it. Who knows? We'll see. But think about also the tectonic shift plate. I mean, I keep on thinking, the universe is big. I said to you this before, the Milky Way galaxy, which is what, I think it's 100 million light years across. I think that's what it is. That I think it's on the upper end opposite of us. We're down here. I always kind of figured out how did they know that. And supposedly it's up over here that we're actually colliding with the dwarf Sagittarius galaxy. And now we're finding out, as big as space is, there's a lot of galaxies that seem to be bumping into each other. So follow me out on this thought. So, I mean, we don't have sensors ahead of our solar system. Oh, it'd be great, that you could get reports of things that are happening a half a light year ahead of you. Give you a little time to prepare back here. We don't have that technology. It'd be great. Maybe these other species do. Again, it seems that it's almost, well, it's not that unusual. And then getting back to the point that our sun would have a binary twin. And I keep on saying and postulating, well, what if it did? But what if that orbit is some 24,000 years? Well, we're just Johnny lately. Where would we be if we became aware of this? Where would we be in that cycle? I mean, we only have records that go back at the best 12,000 years ago. And that's when a comet came and smacked our butts. So would we know? I mean, are we in the apex of what? The furthest part out? I don't know. I mean, these are questions we have no answers to. So when I read stories like this, I just don't simply discount them that some desk jockey out there, and that's, listen, weathermen, or they got the best job ever. They never have to be right. It's the weather. What can you do about the weather? Don't like the weather? Stick around, it'll change. But we also have weaponization of weather. I said earlier in a video that HARP 2 is supposed to now be online. If, I think, particularly if you're up in the Northwest, you're getting a lot of upper ionosphere interference. And from what I understand, HARP 2.0, they have really gotten good. And, HARP, the whole idea, the theory behind it is they can actually heat up the ionosphere. And that has just a number of wacky things that it can do, both on a localized level. And then if you do the daisy chain, and as you know, you can link up telescopes, ground-based radio telescopes, which they are doing, and are doing, and are building a huge one down in Arizona that it will actually be linked with others around the world, making it one of the largest radio Earth-based telescopes ever. That's going to be exciting. But the same thought goes with HARP 2 now, is that they now have that. And maybe that's what we're seeing on Mimic. I don't know. But a lot of people are definitely speculating what happened to Irma. So let's see what happens in the northern hemisphere where winter storms are concerned. Are we going to see storms dumping just hellacious amounts of snow? I don't know. Are we going to see cold hit down all the way well into Central America? Don't know. By the way, the crops down there in South America this past growing season has been decimated. So anyway, that's all I've got on this. Actually, I could go for another 30, 40 minutes because it's all connected. Everything is connecting. And this is just another little piece of it. So leave me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. We will talk soon. Be kind to one another. Be kind to yourself, all of yourselves, all the multiple, you know, figure it's like this. Every second, there is a you, at least as long as you're in this temporal time. There is an impression. And as I did in the UFO video earlier, time is not relative. I'll do a piece on time. What I have been studying and just marveling at is how we're becoming aware that time can be manipulated. I don't know to what degree, but I know that there is an ascension point where time no longer becomes relevant. And when you begin to touch that, I'm not there, but I believe that those of our species have been there before. And I believe that many among us, I think before this whole show is all said and done, I believe that there's going to be a good large amount of us that are going to be reaching that. I think that once the trigger starts and as everyone becomes more in tune, I don't think, I think it's like the pendulum. I think it has had so much resistance because it's been wanting to do this, but the resistance has, I don't know if it's come from us, that they have manipulated us, taking, again, that core energy. I still marvel at the fact that they know about it and they apparently use it against us. I heard one of the stories I read about some of these abductions is it's not only just on the DNA, they're really trying to get at what is that divine spark? Where does it reside? How does it work? They can do it from externally through thought, but still they don't know how it happens. Is it, hear me out, And I went over again, but that's okay. So when the birth process starts, at some point in time, the soul enters, I think, into the cavity of the spirit. The body is forming around it. This is how I see it. And at some point, when the soul becomes integrated with the spirit, now, if you believe in reincarnation, this fits in very closely with that because the soul is the divine spark. Everyone has a spirit, it's the energy and the life force. But then again, there's something that can be very, very different, that spark of divinity. So that's why I always know that there is an infinite being. I'm just convinced, folks, that we don't have the capacity to either comprehend or apprehend the ultimate energy. If it's a brain, it's beyond our capabilities, at least at this present time. That's why we always pictured the gods to be just like us. I think the real thing is beyond our comprehension. I don't think it has a body. I don't think it has a form. It is. It just is. And it doesn't need smaller, how should we say, energies to be worshiping it. I think it's above that. Now, I think all of us desire to get back to it. It's life. It's life that philosophers, Christ, all deities we've assigned that have this. But all the deities are all failed because again, they're created by us. We want to put it into a body, you know. I don't think it's that away, folks. Really don't. I think that's part of why we've been trapped here. And I think that this has been an interesting video, you have to admit that that awareness process is happening globally. We've shifted, I know that. We have, and we're seeing more and more of it impacting all of us. I read your comments and way to go. You folks are, a lot of you are right there learning from you. All right. Be kind to yourself, and we will talk real soon. Let me know your comments.